Hello and welcome back to the Derailment Chronicles, where no train of thought ever stays on track. And if nobody's told you today, I'm glad that you're here with me in this moment. Well, lovelies, I decided to do a bonus episode on MAFS because MAFS has been happening. Obviously, there's the MAFS Funny podcast that Josh does. That's really good, and he actually got invited to a night out, which kind of led to Dinner Party 2 being explosive. So I thought it could be fun as a little bonus episode to give a little recap from Shib's perspective, because some of you have been like, Shib, I would love to hear your thoughts on Married at First Sight, because if you don't know what you don't know, it's actually quite a lot, and I don't know a lot either. But Married at First Sight is really only reality TV show I watch for the year. That's it. That's my limit. I like it. I love the dinner parties. So the first couple of weeks are boring for me with the weddings and honeymoons. But anyway, we've just had week 2 dinner party, and we're coming into week 2 commitment ceremony. So I thought I'd just give like a little 2-week recap. I won't do one every week because like not too much happens in a week. So I'll try to do them like fortnightly, so there's actually more than like 5 minutes of content in there. So anyway, if you know me, you know I like to talk. So let's get into the weddings and the honeymoons and what came from that, and then we'll get into the dinner parties. So I've written down all the names of the couples because some of them haven't been getting a lot of airtime, and 2 of them, their husbands are the same name and their first names start with the same letter, so I get confused. I honestly thought there were 2 couples that both had the same names that were paired up together, but they weren't. They're slightly different. So our first wedding is Alyssa and David, and Alyssa is a nurse and David is a rapper and e-commerce something. He's from Brisbane or Queensland. He's quite chill. Alyssa on the wedding day did seem absolutely and utterly bonkers nuts, but she was at the wedding, but she has since calmed down, so I'm putting that down to possibly a lot of nerves plus first time being on TV, but I am waiting for them to have a big massive fight. Anyway, so what was interesting at their wedding is it gets to the part where it's like, if anybody thinks that these 2 shouldn't be together, speak now, like forever hold your peace. And she was like, sorry, I don't think I can marry you. And he was like, oh, okay. And here's the thing, like, he was exactly what she wanted in a partner, like looks wise. Anyway, it ended up being like, I can't marry you until you get down on one knee and you propose to me. That was the most interesting thing that happened at their wedding. So like, he did eventually get down on one knee. He thought it was a bit weird, but he was like, you know what, like, let's just get into it. Plus, the man was also traumatized because he came on a show to get married and thought he wasn't going to get married. So there was a lot happening, but they seem to be strong now. At the honeymoon, they did get sent to the snow. They did want a tropical vacation in Fiji. Who could blame them? But they did get to go to the snow, to this, like, in Victoria. But David, poor bummer. So they were going into, like, this tiled sauna, and he fell over and cut his knee. Like, he had to get stitches in his knee. Like, we didn't see him fall over because it's in, like, a steam room thing, but you just see the producers running, and, like, then Alyssa sitting there, like, fixing up his knee. Like, luckily, he's married to a nurse, so she was actually quite concerned. He did have to get stitches. The other day in Intimacy Week, still saw he had, like, a bandage dressing sort of thing on it, so she's probably taking care of that, but that was the most eventful thing that's happened for Alyssa and David. So will she come out that she is actually crazy? I don't know, but there are a lot more people on this list that are crazy that I think will top her, so she'll come out seeming normal this season. Then we have Rachel and Stephen, and I'm going to preface Stephen Jr. because these guys are the younger couple of Rebecca and Stephen. You see how I'm getting confused? Rebecca and Stephen are like the 50s couple, you know, like your more mature age couple. And Rachel and Stephen are the younger couple. husbands have the same name. So Rachel and Stephen Jr., I'm going to call him S Jr., they're both insecure people. She was like in a situationship for 7+ years or something. He, I don't know, hasn't dated for a while. I don't know. Both insecure people. He's a lot more quirky. She's like a team lead. Like, she does give HR vibes, but like somebody that's like actually trying to care. Like, she's actually somebody you would want in HR. Anyway, she's pretty. He's alright looking. Their wedding was like 5 minutes of the episode. Look, it was probably 20 minutes, but it felt like 5 minutes because they were really focusing on Alyssa and David's wedding, because Rachel and Stephen's was completely and utterly uneventful. Anyway, Rachel and Stephen get sent to Mudgee for their honeymoon, to this like glamping thing. Unfortunately, Stephen has stomach issues, and in the glamping tent they're staying in, there's no walls, and the toilet is right behind the bed, basically. So he was a bit worried about that, as you would be, because it's quite confronting. And then they were getting a little bit flirty, get to know you, and he asked Rachel on the honeymoon, like, what's your ideal day? Like, tell me what your ideal day is like. What's the best day you'd like? And she was like going to like an AFL footy game, and he was like, oh, you're going to be somebody that like yells at the TV or whatever. Like, he seemed to be like making a joke of it, you know, to keep the conversation going, because they are both awkward people. And she took offense to that, so then they had a big fight, but then they were back together. So yeah, some more drama comes for them this week, but basically they've probably had a collective half an hour on TV together. A lot more of the other couples have had a lot more going on. Then we have Scott and Gia, the fake Barbie and Ken. Scott's your typical playboy from the Gold Coast. Okay, drives all the sports car, has 3 businesses, works out, got the fake veneers. Gia is a single mum to an 8-year-old, and she is a plastic Barbie, and she says so herself. She also says she looks like somebody that would put out real easy, so at least she knows that she does look like that, and she's chosen to look like that. But she was actually a Playboy bunny in her 20s. She's a disability support worker, apparently. I don't know where she's getting all the funding from for this plastic surgery, etc. from, but basically they are the two bogans. But they also have an ego that's bigger than Gia's boobs, and so they think that they are the power couple of the season. They are going quite strong, so yeah, they got married on a beach, and they got sent to Townsville, to Ardo, which is quite a nice hotel in Townsville. But that's all really happened on their honeymoon, also uneventful. Then we have the couple with probably the most airtime, I would argue, is Mel and Luke. You might have seen the hashtags Justice for Luke. Luke really would have suited what's the Channel 9 show, the Farmer Wants a Wife thing, because he is a farmer and he's a sensitive soul, and basically he hasn't dated anybody for a bit because he was trying to get himself emotionally ready after the passing of his dad. Mel is a communication specialist, and she wants, what does she call him? She's a pink girl and pink woman, and she wants a blue man, like a typical like breadwinner, will open all the doors, will carry all the bags, will get all the pests out of the house. Okay, she wants to be a princess, and she wants him to do all the work. So here's the thing, their wedding was a bit strange. So Luke has Luke didn't have the rings, okay? But they didn't find out that Luke didn't have the rings until they were in the car halfway to the wedding venue. So then nobody had the rings, so then they had to turn around, go back an extra 10 to 20 minutes to get the rings. Meanwhile, Mel is also on her way to the wedding ceremony. And she starts walking down the aisle while Luke's, they're still rushing back, get the rings on their way back. She walks down the aisle to nobody being there, which is not her fairy tale moment. And granted, yeah, okay, it's a bit weird. You come on a show called Married at First Sight, you're like, does this person have cold feet? Have they left me stranded at the altar? Anyway, the producers were behind that. The producers were funny for that. You know what I'm saying? The producers knew what they were doing. They could have let Mel, like the other producers know, hold back Mel for like walking down the aisle for another 10 minutes. Anyway, Luke gets there. He's chewing gum because he doesn't want his breath to sing. And so he starts running, bolting to the aisle because he knows he's late. His sisters are like, run, 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 right? So how it was edited made it look like... So Luke was there. He apologized for being late. He knew he was late. He goes, sorry, I forgot the rings. And then Mel was like, this is red flag 1 in her like little cutaway bit. Then he's chewing gum, and they edited it to make it seem like she was chewing gum during... Like he was chewing gum during her vows, which is his sister has come online and said that is absolutely not true. He was chewing gum until he got to the altar, and he did hand the sister the piece of gum before the ceremony even started. But anyway, Mel got the ick from that, and basically she wrote him off day one because he also wasn't a Bradley Cooper lookalike. So this was the most eventful wedding they had. They got sent to South Australia, to this beautiful like winery or something. They were doing a pizza making course, I think, at the I don't know, distillery, winery / you can do a pizza course thing here. But they weren't sleeping in the same bed. Luke was trying really hard to like break the ice, but Mel was not having any of it. And as a communication specialist, we all think it's a bloody joke. She was like, oh, I'm sure you can sleep on the couch, because it was like a 1-bedroom hotel room where they were staying. She was like, I'll see if I can find some extra blankets because it's like middle of winter when they're doing the weddings. And she's like, well, if we can't find a blanket, you can just use a towel, like man up and just use a towel, like you'll be warm enough. So that's how Luke was getting treated. So hashtag justice for Luke. Then we have Rebecca and Stephen Senior. So they are like, I think they're both in their 50s or nearly in their 50s. They're the oldest couple currently on MAFS for the season. I don't know of all time. Yeah. He's got 4 daughters. She's got a son. Their wedding was quite uneventful. Don't even know where they got sent to for their honeymoon. That's how little airtime they got and how little I was paying attention to them. They seem to be going well until the first red flag, green flag activity, and we're going to get into that. Then we have Stella and Philip, and they're going pretty strong. Their parents both immigrated to Australia, and they both have strong work ethics. Stella's mate grilled Philip on why he brought up that he has a YouTube channel and his vows, and he answered all our questions, etc. She was like coming in real hot. But anyway, they're doing really well. Their wedding was beautiful, but they went to Tasmania for their honeymoon, the Freycinet National Park. It was beautiful, lovely. Then we also have Brooke and Chris, and Chris is this year's MAFS skeptic. Brooke is a model. Chris said there's a 0.00001% chance of this actually working out. And boy, Chris, were you correct. Then we also have Beck and Danny. Beck is crazy. Basically from South Australia. She got out of she was engaged and then she got out of a relationship. I think the relationship was 7 years or something. Just wasn't the love of her life. Danny is a real estate agent, I think from the GC, and he's also into boxing. People have called him Timu Conor McGregor, and I can't unsee it. Sort of correct. And then we also have Grayson and Julia, Julia, her fun fact is that she is bisexual. Grayson's fun fact is that he always looks like a fish out of water, but also that he knows Kerry and Johnny, who were on a previous season and were a successful marriage, and they now have a kid and they're still so in love. Think Cam and Jules, but later on. So that's all our couples currently, and not too much happened on the honeymoons. We did find out Brooke, who was with the skeptic guy, the model chick, Brooke, she did go to, she did sleep with her ex 2 days before coming on the show and getting married. And this is going to be important information. I will probably have to put up a spoiler, what's it called? Spoiler warning when we come up to them. So they all come back from their honeymoons and they go to dinner party 1, basically before the commitment ceremony. And a lot of stuff has, since they haven't really seen each other since the hens night, bucks night, a lot of stuff that happened on that night carried over. And number 1 was Beck and Gia have a mutual hatred. Or do they really? Was it just all produced is the question, because they only seem to be kikiing after the show. Basically, I think Beck's just that insecure that she was coming for Gia. Gia wasn't really doing anything, to be honest with you. It's all in Beck's head, and that's what very much so Beck's like. So that carried over into dinner party 1. Beck's just worried because Gia is her husband Danny's kind of usual type, apparently. And so Beck is worried that Danny will leave her for Gia. So it's her insecurities coming out all night. And then basically Mel doesn't even really talk to Luke. Mel acts different for everybody else, and hence hashtag justice for Luke came about. The experts could see it. Everybody could see that Luke was just down and depressed. Jetstar even posted a justice for Luke video on TikTok. Like, that's how big it kind of got. Reason, so then they also say, who slept together in the first week. Stella and Philip had, they're going stronger. Scott and Gia had, they are going stronger. But the whole thing was Beck and Danny did sleep together, and Danny had no sexual chemistry with Beck. That made Beck insecure. It didn't bring him closer. Gia was like, I want to dig into this. What's she avoiding? Danny wasn't going to talk about it because he is apparently a gentleman and promised Beck's father at the wedding that he would be respectful, which he did. He did go up and tell the father that. And basically, Beck thought this was going to be the end of it because she's not as successful as Gia and Scott. So that's all that really happened at dinner party 1. That was kind of boring. But they did do, what do they call it, Revelations Week. They did see, what do you call it, the auditions tapes. And the most controversial audition tape was Chris's. Because Brooke watched that, and Chris basically said he doesn't like fat people, girls that wear fake tan, or clingy girls. Brooke called Chris out on it, rightly so. This was when Brooke was sainted, okay? We were like, call this bloody man out. She was like, you can't be saying that. That's mean. That's degrading. I can't believe you said that. He was like, it's just locker room talk. You know, I'm a footy boy. And she's like, well, just because it's footy room talk doesn't mean you have to participate in it. You need to stand up. You need to take a stance and say, this is disgraceful. This is disgusting. Yada, 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 right? She was adamant. Then she was on the phone to her sister and she's like, this is giving me a bloody massive ick. Should I run? Girl, yeah, you should run. But little did we know that that just comes out as not being the biggest thing that happens with this couple. So that happened. And then Scott and Gia Scott's video where he said he didn't want somebody with kids because he didn't want to have to pay tuition fees, etc., came up, and Gia was like, I knew he was a lying scumbag. And then because she brought it up to him at the wedding, he was like, more than happy to accept you and your daughter into my life. He did stick with that. He did stick with that story though, and they resolved it really quickly. But she was just like, this is my biggest fear, that I get in here and I start getting feelings for somebody that doesn't want kids. So that happened. And then they had to do this red flag, green flag activity. They did put the photos in a lineup, who you like most to least attractive look wise. Everybody put their partner first except for Mel, because he wasn't a, what do you call it, Bradley Cooper lookalike. That's her repeating line. For a communication specialist, you would think about there'd be more happening, but that's what's been happening. Then you had Rachel and Stephen Jr. Stephen Jr.'s biggest thing was that he had, I think, an eating disorder, because he was trying to lose a lot of weight to fit in, to look more socially attractive as a male. And Rachel felt that on a deep level. So then, yes, they had the boys and the girls separated at this pub, and they did an activity called green flag, red flag, which basically each of them get up, talk about the green flags and red flags of their partners. So from that, most interesting ones were Rebecca and Stephen. Rebecca got up and said all these green flags about Stephen. Stephen got up and couldn't find one green flag about Rebecca, and went straight into the red flags. Said she talked too much, her emotions are a roller coaster, she wants too much from him, she's just not his type, he's a very conservative man. I think that was it. It was really like the talks too much. There was a lot. He had a list. It was just like no green flags straight in, and all the guys were like, holy moly, because they had looked so together at like the dinner party, etc. Then who were Brooke and Chris. Brooke raised the things that Chris said in his audition video. All the girls were shocked. She came, she sat down, and Brooke did not shut up. She did not let anybody else have their moment. Mind you, a couple of girls had gone before Brooke, but Brooke wouldn't shut up. Brooke started coming for Stella, okay? Because Stella was like, oh, we're in a really good place in their relationship, and they really are. And she was like, I call bullshit. You can't even come up with one red flag. Like, mate, your best friend G is struggling to come up with a red flag for her husband, and you didn't call her out. But anyway, insecurities were coming up because Stella and Philip were quite strong. They could contest Gia and Scott for the power couple role. Mind you, it's a self-titled power couple role. Stella and Philip wouldn't give a shit if they were or were not a power couple. So she came for that, and then she also came for Alyssa and David, because apparently Alyssa talks too much, and Brooke just wouldn't let anybody talk. Then Mel got up and basically said, oh my god, this guy's ruining my life, like, I'm unhappy, and she's barely said 2 sentences to this man. And Luke got up, and he did have some green flags about her. Like, he is genuinely trying. And anyway, a lot of the girls were supporting Mel because they're like, oh my god, Stella was over here, the voice of reason. Okay, we heart Stella MVP. she was like, there's two sides to every story. And then Mel was like, oh my God, I don't feel like Stella supports me. So Brooke and Gia then went on to Stella and were just like, how dare you not support Mel? You don't know what's happening. And then Brooke's like, I'm a girl's girl. And I was like, oh, here we go. And Chris is a boy's boy, and you called him out for boy's behaviour. But like, this girl's behaviour is absolutely no different. Pot calling the kettle black. Yeah, so that was all that was really happening. They don't even really show Grayson and Julia do theirs, because Grayson and Julia are like the forgotten people, because nothing was really happening there. Then at the commitment ceremony, Mel got her ass handed to her by the experts because she had basically given up on the relationship and wasn't even trying. Even Gia said, girl, you haven't given him a chance. Then everybody else went up, and then we got to Stella and Philip, and Stella's like, I just kind of want to protect what we have at the moment from the outside world. And the judges, well, they're more a judge than an expert, to be honest. The experts were like, what do you mean by that? And she was just like, some people don't want happiness for you or something. Like, some people aren't as happy for you as you are for yourself. And Brooke took that as a direct attack at her, which it kind of was, but it wasn't like that deep. And then they started fighting on the couch, and the experts had to break it up. And then, because people were standing up for Stella because saying it was unfair, Alyssa was like, yeah, I've been called fake too. And Gia and Brooke got on the defense because they were getting called out for all the stuff they said. I really think at these commitment ceremonies, they need to start rolling the raw, unedited footage to show you what they really did say. So then we had intimacy week this week that had been going on. So what really a lot of the couples did really well. Beck and Danny got back in the groove. They got their groove back on. Grayson and Julia had an interesting one because Alessandra sets the women do your ultimate fantasy night, and Julia's was sitting down asking Grayson about his past traumas and what his favourite traits were in his ex, and a stranger that's really changed your life. So getting to know you questions, because she likes to have a mind orgasm in her words. And Grayson's over here like a fish out of water, being like, what does this even mean? He's feeling frustrated because she's using language and like, she's just like, the organic flow of this aura is just a bit off. And he's like, so what, how does that make you, like, how do you feel about me? Like, I just don't know where I stand. And she'll just go on some, like, rant, and you just get more confused, and you're like, Grayson, yeah, I don't know where you stand with her. And then the next day, the guys went to Alessandra's workshop, and Alessandra was also just as dumbfounded as Grayson. Who else? We had Brooke and Chris. They did paintings. Stella and Philip did also paintings. Rebecca and Stephen got nowhere. So Gia's kind of taken Rebecca under her wing, because Rebecca's like, I want to break out. I want to be this. Like, don't get me wrong. Rebecca's a really beautiful woman, and a lot of people on the Reddit are like, she is a really beautiful woman. Like, she's a beautiful soul. She's here for the right reasons. And she also doesn't know what Stephen said about her in the red flag, green flag towers. Because Stephen Sr. got up on that commitment ceremony couch the first week and was just like, we're doing great. And all the guys were looking at each other like, what the hell? Because this is incorrect. He lied through his teeth. Basically saying they're in a great spot. They like how much they're holding hands, etc. Rebecca was there breaking down on the couch because she just wants... She's like, I'm not here for friends at first sight. I'm here for married at first sight. And go, girl, you tell him. And he's just like, oh, I'm conservative and don't want to try. Stephen got into a fight with Alessandra because basically what happened is the girls got set their fantasy tasks. Rebecca and Gia went to an adult shop. She helped Rebecca pick out some lingerie, which was the most... They ended up being... she picked out the ones that were the most covered up for lingerie. And Rebecca was really excited about it. She was like, yeah. So Rebecca walks back in to the apartment with Stephen, and she shows him what she bought, and he was like, I wouldn't really feel comfortable with you in that intimacy. I'm just not there with you yet. And then it was basically all centered around Stephen. What Stephen wants, Stephen goes. Stephen wanted a 30-year-old woman who would just not question anything he says, because he needs to feel in control in the relationship. So he's a bit ticked off. He got matched with somebody appropriate for his age. So that caused a big fight, because Rebecca's like, what am I even doing here? But Gia didn't know until all the guys went to the Alessandra's workshop the next day, and Stephen and Alessandra had a fight because Stephen wasn't taking anything on that Alessandra had to say, and was like, it's Rebecca's ultimate fantasy night, you ruined that, like, it's not all about you. And he was just like, I don't think I did anything wrong. So anyway, then Scott goes home, tells Gia, obviously, and then Gia's pissed for Rebecca. And then Meanwhile, Scott and Rebecca and Stephen have had like a massive fight, because I think she's staying in another apartment, or they're in separate apartments by this stage. Rebecca and Stephen are. Shit's going down, and he's just here for himself. Then we have Rachel and Stephen, and Stephen is very awkward. So for her fantasy night, she did this Love Actually thing where she wrote things down on like a A3 sheet of paper. You know, you can keep flipping through the A3 sheets of paper, because she wanted him to kiss her. That's it. She's like, we've had a couple of pecks, but I want a kiss that would make me feel something. And she's blindfolded too, to make it less scary for him. Anyway, it gets to the part where it's like, would you please kiss me? Mind you, Stephen's reading it out loud, and he's there looking awkward as hell in his like little jumper. And anyway, he was like, I could kiss you, Rachel, but I don't know if you would feel anything. Well, anyway, she cracked the absolute shit, which you would. And so they talked about it, and he's just like, I'm just not at that level with you yet. I just don't feel that level of connection yet. Yada, yada, yada. She was upset. She was crying. She left the apartment. Anyway, she comes back the next day. It turns out it's her birthday. She's still pissed that he wouldn't give anything. And so then she cleared her stuff out of the house. She even took the bloody cleaning products. She was like, you know what? I set this place up like it was a home. So I'm taking all the things I bought to make it a home. She was there with cleaning products and everything. And I'm like, iconic girl. Mind you, it was also her birthday. Did I mention that? And he's sitting there awkwardly in the apartment. And then he said happy birthday to her as she walked in, right? And he's like, oh, would it be helpful if I leave and give you some space to finish packing up? Because it was super duper awkward. And she was like, you do whatever you want to do. And he's like, all right, I'll step out for 5 minutes. Stephen! If you have any shred of luck for this woman, you're going to run down to the local Coles or Woolies and got like some cupcakes and some flowers for her birthday. Show that you're making an effort. Show that you're thinking about her. Stephen! Woolies mug cakes hit. You know what I'm saying? It's the thought that counts, okay? Even though... And if she chooses to chuck it in your face, at least it's not that hard. You know, it's not going to hurt. So, both Stevens were let down. on that day. But the rest of them were fine. You know. Then Brooke left Chris after, so the challenge that Alessandra said to the guys is, you gotta do a little something for your wife that will make their life easier and just shows that you've put thought and care into it. And so Chris, okay, he knows he's in the doghouse basically. Anyway, Chris decided, he went out, he got a nice bottle of champagne, some face masks, ran a hot bath. Okay, he was doing like beauty night, beauty chill night, which is something that I thought Brooke would be 110% into. And she's like, yeah, I just don't want to do this with you right now. Then she left. She flew back to her ex on the GC. And then the next night was the dinner party, and this is where we're currently up to. So, what happened at this dinner party? A lot happened. I think a lot happened behind the scenes as well. So, apparently, the cast have Saturday and Sunday nights off, but they also have a curfew of like 10:30 p.m. or something. And they all decided to go for a night out. They're not meant to be together as a group because MAFS wants to capture that all on camera. But they all lied. Well, a lot of them lied, and they said they were doing different things, and they all went out as a group. And they invited somebody from the Guardian Mail. They invited MAFS funny Josh there as well. And I think there was a couple other paparazzi there. And I only found out about this because Josh on the MAFS Funny podcast has a 2-part series about this night, so go check that out. It's about 20 minutes. And they had a big night out, and Chris was basically threatening Josh. Josh went and told Channel 9 producers, and the whole way MAFS was run changed. Like, they take their cards off them at 10:30 p.m. at night or whatever, so they can't leave the premises. That Josh had accusations against Chris of being like actually like threatening him being scared, and all of this kind of stuff. So a lot was happening. They were getting in trouble. Tensions flared. Mind you, Alyssa and David, Stella and Philip were not at this night out. So we get to the next day in the dinner party. Brooks left. Chris is by himself. He's like, I'm going to leave, etc. He was also saying that at the night out, and there were tempers between Gia and Scott as well, which the power couple facade was starting to break at this night out. So basically, they rock up. All the couples rock up. Chris was the last one to rock up by himself. He originally didn't want to go. Then the producers convinced him to go, being like, oh my god, having friends really helps during this dark time. And then obviously Rebecca and Stephen came separately, but that was of no surprise to anybody in the room because all the husbands had relayed to their wives what had happened. So anyway, everybody's like, oh, team Rebecca, because they know Steve's lying pack, like a lying dirtbag, right? They've seen it at the red flag, green flag thing, and they also saw it at the Alessandra workshop. Alessandra also knows this as well. So, they're sitting in, they're all doing fine, whatnot. They're all sitting down, they're having dinner, they're asking how Chris is going. Mel and Luke walk in hand, because Mel and Luke have been having a good week, because Mel actually started putting in some effort. But we think it's fake effort. But we'll see how it goes. I don't think they're going to end up together though. Like, that is a real prediction. So they're all sitting down, and I think they've definitely started dinner. And then guess who walks in? Beck walks in. Sorry, not Beck. Brooke walks in. She's like, I'm back, bitches. And she sits down, and she was like, they had to beg her to come back for this dinner party. And she's like, I'm not back for Chris. I'm back to end all this drama or this unfinished business I have with these women. So originally, okay, now that Brooke was out of the picture, Gia was like, who's going to be my Goonies buddy? And so she started talking to Beck, and Beck did a flip-flop and was just like, oh my God, I would love to be your bestie. So Beck was there, and she was just like, oh my God. So Beck and Gia were thick as thieves when they wanted to kill each other the week before. And then Beck finds out she wasn't ever really part of the group. So because Brooke comes in, and who's the first person running towards Brooke? Gia. She's like, thank Jesus you're here. It's like, I don't have to deal with Beck anymore. Like, oh my God, yes. Mel's in the little thing as well, silent but laughing. Beck's there, silent but laughing. And so Stella was having a conversation with somebody, I think it was Steven Sr. And she was like, oh, said something about a relationship or whatever. You know, most of it's cut, but like, said something about a relationship. And Brooke's sitting across the table from him, and she goes, oh, here we go, Stella giving relationship advice. And then Brooke went on to like talk for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. Stella silent the whole time, just sitting there listening, looking at her. Philip's there now, and he's just like, whoa, what are you going to do to my wife? And Stella's like, I've got a handle kind of thing. And then she finally gives Stella a chance to speak, and she was like, do you notice how I've been silent this whole time and how long you've been talking for? And do you realise English isn't my second language? And Brooke was like, well, you said it, not me. Then got up her about like some Target, wearing some Target shoes or something. And I don't know, it was super duper random. Anyway, she was just trying to distract people from the reason she was back. And then Alyssa was calling it out, and Alyssa's like, this is bullying behaviour, like, I won't stand for it. And then they were like, oh, you need to take out your rat ass bloody hair extensions, and you need to be quiet, etc, etc. So then Alyssa was quiet, but then Brooke was trying to egg her on again. Like, it was like grade 8 Mean Girls. Meanwhile, okay, Mel's in the background laughing, egging on Brooke. Beck's also in the background egging on Brooke. Rebecca is in the background egging on Brooke. Julia and Rachel are sitting there like, what the hell is going on? This needs to stop. All the guys are like, this is absolutely disastrous. This is giving us the ick. Like, they're like, this is not good. Chris realizes Brooke was never back for him, so he's disappointed because he actually liked her. And I don't know why. I just don't know. Brooke has since come out with an apology though, saying it was really bad behaviour, but ChatGPT might have written that for her. People that she formerly went to school with have come out and said she was exactly like that in high school. She hasn't changed. Also spoiler alert, she's now pregnant with her ex's baby. So she was still seeing the ex a lot of weekends, etc., while filming MAFS. And yeah, so looked like wasn't really ever there for the right reasons, allegedly. So that's been happening, and Channel 9's not happy about that because under their contract, like, Channel 9's meant to control their, like, appearances and stuff on TV because it's, like, under contract and reflects on the show, etc., all that ish. So, it was just constant nagging, constant Mean Girl stuff. Gia was also yelling, getting vocal there, but it was just disappointing to see from Rebecca. Like, she was laughing at a lot of moments where the girls were dragging Alyssa and Stella were literally there. They had better emotional maturity. Mel we weren't surprised about, but then Beck thought she was part of the group, but then they turned on Beck because Danny started speaking up because he was like sick of hearing everything. And Gia was like, well, have you told your wife what she said to me at that night out or something, or over the summer? And he was like, no. And because Beck's really insecure because, like, Gia is apparently Danny's type. And Brooke's like, yeah, have you told her? I could tell her right now if you wanted me to. And anyway, Beck was like, oh, no, we're not letting this go. Like she was sitting there festering. She was like, what did she say? What did he say? And then Gia Leno was basically like, oh, that Danny's more my type, etc., etc. Because they had been talking to each other at the night out. And then Danny was like, you're lying. Brooke and Gia have absolutely no credibility. And at this point, I'd be more likely to believe Danny. And then Scott's like, Gia wouldn't lie about this, etc., backing up his wife. And Danny's just like, look at me. I got one thing to say to you. I'm not into Gia, but she, like, wasn't buying it. Like, her insecurities were going a mile a minute. So Beck got turned on, and now I really think she was regretting laughing at some of the mean girl behaviours there. So overall, it's just been mean girl bullying to people who have absolutely done nothing by Brooke and Gia. Quite frankly, probably because they are insecure in their relationships and they have nothing better to do, apparently. Brooke definitely is insecure in her relationships and the blind could see it. So yeah, that's really my MAFS recap. Oh, Rachel and Stephen did kiss. They did end up kissing. And she was stoked about it. She went into the dinner party like, oh my god, guys, we actually kissed. We actually had a really good kiss. So proud of them. Go, people. Justice for Luke. And if you want to hear more about the night out, please go see the MAFS Funny podcast by Josh. Also give him a follow. He does stuff on Instagram and Facebook. And he like crashes the weddings and stuff. Like he's there because where they film's near where he lives. So go follow him and honestly hit me up with your thoughts about MAFS if you're watching it. If you're not watching it, there's a lot of good people on TikTok that do recaps of the episodes that take the mickey out of everybody, which is also funny. So yeah, that's it for today's episode, and make sure if you're not, give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or YouTube. And if you want to yell with me into the void in between episodes, hit me up on Instagram. And most importantly, remember to stay chaotic out there. See ya!